Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Well, today, unusually I have a stiff drink in my hand at the very start of the video, and there's a very good reason for that, and I'm going to have a quick sip of it right now because this one is going to be a bit challenging, and there's no good news in here for the people concerned, I can tell you. Or is there? Cheers anyway. I've got my Christmas lights going. Merry Christmas, even though it's a bit early-ish. This is going to be an interesting one. I think you might enjoy. Cheers. I need much needed fortification for what is to come. Because today we are going to talk about, let's talk about the Far Eastern manufacturers like Great Wall Hobby, like Border, like Academy, like Hobby Boss, like Meng, like many others. But I'm going to start with what I regard as the bottom of the heap. Trumpeter. I'm not going to go into huge detail with these. I haven't got massive experience with all of them, but I have got a lot of experience with some of these manufacturers that is not good at all. So we're starting with Trumpeter. Trumpeter, I just have very low tolerance for, I'm afraid. Trumpeter seem to make interesting subjects. They do very interesting modelling subjects. You know, they do some pretty subjects, but they always seem to get everything wrong so badly compared to other manufacturers. They don't have great instructions, dire instructions, frankly. But some of their examples of the actual extrusion, injection moulding of the plastic has been really bad. And I'm thinking of, they did the Bear bomber, there was the Lightning, the British Lightning jet fighter, which they got, the dimensions are not right on it. It's not horrendous, but it's not right. Then they did what was the next one, the Eurofighter Typhoon, which I don't know whether they used the prototype, but they've got all sorts of issues on that. The tail's not right and the dimensions are not right. Oh, and they just... I'm going to get them out of the way first because to me they're almost laughable. They're so bad to me. I'll never buy a Trumpeter kit unless something very dramatic happens in the future and makes me have an epiphany and want to buy them, because they are almost programmed to disappoint you. So I'm afraid that they are the bottom of the heap, frankly. So I'll get that out of the way now. I'm not going to go into rambling on in great detail about Trumpeter. Trumpeter, just avoid them. Unless somebody buys them or they have a change of management and a change of focus or whatever. But as things stand, you know, there were two actually. There was Trumpeter and there was Kitty Hawk. Well, Kitty Hawk have gone, of course. And we shouldn't wish companies to fail and wish them away. I'm not like that at all. I don't wish any of these companies to fail. The more the merrier, you know, but there are certain standards that some of these Far Eastern manufacturers are not hitting. Now, it's not all Far Eastern manufacturers, and I want to say at the very beginning of this video does not include Tamiya from Japan or Zoukei Mura from Japan. But it does affect quite a lot of the others. And I'm going to give you examples of why I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder with some of these manufacturers. I'll give you some concrete examples. Now, I say Kitty Hawk, probably the worst of the worst, then Trumpeter, not much better, frankly. And if Trumpeter disappeared, I wouldn't miss them. I don't wish it on them, though. Just want them to get their act together. Do the research properly, make a bit more effort with a lot more effort with the instructions, and pull yourself together and be a proper global manufacturer. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to review Trumpeter kits. I'm just not interested at all. But let's move on to the others, because they're not the only sinners in this house of sin, this Far Eastern house of sin. Who's next in the pile of sin then? Let me think. Well, some are better than others. Some kits are better than others. Yes. But let's go to the next one that's really dire in my experience. And you know who this is. It's KINETIC. And that bloody awful Sea Harrier. Now, since this has been produced, it's 7 or 8 years now, But since this is British, they produced some better kits, in fairness. They got the Starfighter was a better kit, the F-16 was a better kit. Everybody tells me the Pucara is a better kit as well. So they've actually produced some decent ones since then. But quite how they ever thought they were going to get away with this. And let's not confuse this kit that's here on my shoulder with this, the later version, a year or 18 months later, the FA2, which has got, it's not the same kit, but it's the same kit. It's a lot of the parts are the same, but the instructions are like night and day. And in the only part of the instructions that was the same was the first page, which shows the internals of the cockpit. After that, the instructions are totally different and bear no resemblance. Now, I am going to show you, I've actually got my little pad here. I'm going to show you some examples without going into, I've called it the Doe file with Homer Simpson, because this seems entirely appropriate here for these guys. Let me just move that up here. We'll bring it back a bit. I'll zoom you in a bit. But I'll give you a couple of examples of what some of the problems have been without droning on and repeating myself too much. So, in terms of KINETIC, well, we've got that in a minute. KINETIC, these instructions I moaned about on the KINETIC Sea Harrier. Well, it's no wonder, is it? Because here we had so many scenarios where, let's get rid of that excess light, so many scenarios where we had errors. So, for example, they couldn't decide where the antennas are supposed to go. If you don't have huge amounts of research to hand, you are going to get in trouble with these kits. I'm not sure that's coming out too well, but basically they show the antennas in one position if you have the wheels gear bay doors open, and then if you have them closed it shows those antennas in different positions. What on earth were they on about there? And this is just the beginning of some of the stupidity, but there's more. Then they have parts which just suspend in the air, and there's no indication of exactly where they locate, and the locations weren't good anyway. But there's not even an arrow to tell you. So I've written to where, to where. It's like that with lots of parts. It doesn't show any arrow. There's no indication of where the part actually fits. And when they do show an arrow, as they do over here, they're usually wrong. So they're just a nightmare, to be honest. And then over here, we've got another one. So they had 3 different types of pylon in the kit, and for some reason they didn't indicate there were 3 different types, and they don't give any part numbers. Which parts are these supposed to be when there's 3 different types? You idiots! You couldn't make this stuff up. I've shown all this in the past in my Harrier rant, and this is bound to be a rant, and I was going to discuss KINETIC. And again here, again, look at it's me that's put the circle round. They're just suspended in the air. Well, this E9 part doesn't show where that goes, and then they actually don't mention the intake part, which is I've pointed out. These are my notes here with the comments and arrows. Not theirs. Nothing in the instructions. Not even mentioning the part that's the intake on the nose. What are they on? I mean, how stupid are they? They show that one going there, and that is incorrect. That is simply not the right position at all. It's completely out. And this is the standard of instructions. They were just incompetent. So that's them. I'll zoom you out now because I don't want this to turn into a repeat of the Sea Harrier rant. We had enough of that already. I already had 2 videos on that. But this is why I was so cross with KINETIC. And there were lots of other issues. Some of the plastic was very poor in there as well in terms of the joins and things. It was hard work, and if you want to make it very accurate in terms of where those antennas and aerials and things, do not follow the instructions. Even the information about the kill marks and things like that, and the markings. They got that wrong. They quoted all sorts of facts from the Falklands. They got everything back to front and all wrong. Lots of factual totally erroneous information. They got mixed up between Sharkey Ward and Dave Morgan and all sorts of stuff. So just a mess the instructions were. And if you remember, those of you that watched, I ripped the instructions up live on air on my show, my rant show. And that's why I haven't got them anymore. I only got the photographs. But that's quite enough. So I've been saving this box, this FRS1 box. Now it can go to the bin because I kept it for this video to just remind myself again what hell it was. Beautiful artwork, by the way. If only the instructions were half as good as that picture, would have been okay. So that's one out of the way. KINETIC. So Trumpeter, no. Yeah, Kitty Hawk have gone. KINETIC, be careful. Some of the Mirage isn't good either. People have had problems with the Mirage. Lots of people had trouble with the Mirage. Some of their kits are just just dire. But they are improving, and I don't want to be unfair to any of these manufacturers. If you can see they're improving, I'll say so. So let's get that out of the way. Next, oh, I shut that prematurely. I've forgotten. There's another absolute classic coming up from our friends at Border. I've got some examples. Now, I'm not talking particularly about the kits in front of me that are the bad example. I want to make that very clear. Because here I've actually got one of their better products from Border. The 88mm gun, which I got as a gift for my birthday. So I've got to say nice things about it. But I'm not saying nice things about the manufacturer, because some of their kits, they just have a complete rank level of incompetence. Examples: the Messerschmitt 109, BF 109, was it the G6 or G40? I can't remember the model number now. About a year, 18 months ago, they come out with this beautifully tooled kit, some fantastic plastic, and they are very good at tooling. It has to be, you know, credit where it is due. But the instructions were just dire. They do not include any proper information about any internal components colour guide. There's no colour call-outs for any of the engine or the interior or the cockpit or anything else. And they came out with an absolute, this year, more recently, they've come out with an absolute classic, just proving my point about these manufacturers and the lack of attention to detail that they seem to suffer with. Now have a look at this. This is going to make you have a little chuckle. If you haven't seen this already, you're going to enjoy it. Ready? Here we go. Can you spot their deliberate mistake? So this is supposed to be the Focke-Wulf 190 A6 from Border, which they call the Messerschmitt FW190 A6. They cannot even get, talk about call-outs and instructions, they can't even get the name right. No, I'm going to shut that down. Now, come on. You see my point? Yeah? Now, joking apart, you know, it's particularly annoying when you get something that's particularly well produced in terms of the plastic. And we've had this with Meng as well. I'll come back to Meng later, but I'll mention them now as well. We've had issues with them where they've had some fairly ropey instructions from time to time, and we've also had some ropey quality from them. Now, before I let Border off the hook, I'll say that's one of their better products, so that one we won't get into that one. But why would you produce a kit with, you know, fantastic detail? It's a 35th scale kit, isn't it? These aircraft they're doing now, which is a very strange scale, by the way. But they're doing the Focke-Wulf 190 and they're doing the Messerschmitt 109 and the Stuka. I forgot the Stuka. All the same. No call-outs for paint. You've got no idea. You've got to research every part of the bloody aircraft and get, you know, a colour call-out for every part of it if you want to do it accurately. Why would they do this? Why are they not capable of giving you simple data with the colours of what the parts are for the engine, for the cockpit interiors? What's the matter with them? Do they think they don't have to do that? It's just weird. No wonder they show in their promotional literature, they always show an unpainted model. Oh, no wonder, because they don't know how to paint it. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And that Focke-Wulf was £80, £85, I think it's been. Well, I'm sorry, but the new Zoukei Mura one now, we haven't seen it yet, but I think we know what we're going to get. That's coming out at about the same price, or certainly within £5 of it. It's night and day, you know. Their instructions are researched back to the Stone Age. It's almost like they resurrected Kurt Tank and got all these diagrams and documents out of his office and had it all explained to them. It's fantastic, the research that they do. They never leave you in any doubt about how it should be done. We'll talk about them in a separate video, but Border, a disaster. They made a mess of the Lancaster when they got the wingnut wings mould for the Lancaster. They messed up all the clear parts. There were some technical errors in it. I'm just trying to remember some of the stories I've heard about that. I've not had experience myself, but I know people who've been building it have got very frustrated indeed with it. They're just a mess, frankly. Everything's corners cut, not done properly, can't be bothered to communicate, and it's all because they don't want to employ someone who speaks English or a translator to do it for them. and they just don't want to make a mistake. So they put nothing in English. There's no written words in the instructions. There's no colour references in the instructions apart from that colour sheet at the end, on which they put the wrong name of the aircraft and mix up their 190s and their 109s. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. You couldn't make this stuff up. It's really poor. It's really poor. So yeah, if I'm being negative about them too, right, I am. Yeah, they need to just sort themselves out. They've got half the most difficult part of the kit. They're doing beautifully, and the easy part they're making an utter mess of it. And I won't buy border until they sort it out. I'm not going to buy any border. I'm not reviewing border kits. Apart from this one, it was a gift, but I'm not buying any more. I think that they could easily turn the corner on this, and they could easily improve and become the sort of manufacturer we'd all be a lot more enthusiastic about. It's easily done. They just can't be bothered. But they're going to have to understand that there's a reaction, that there are consequences if you want to take that sort of shortcut. I mean, on that model, it's the flat gun, the 88mm flat gun. Well, it's pretty much all the same colour, frankly. The colours, it's not the same as an aircraft. But if that had been an aircraft, then it would have been a bit of a squeaky moment for me, because I'd be like, well, I don't want to support them. So I'm not going to be buying any of their aircraft. I just don't think it's up to the mark. They don't deserve the price that they are charging for them. So border, not impressed. Not impressed. Anyway, I'm going to move that one out of the way. Who's next in this web of sin from the Far East, eh? Well, I think the next one is Great Wall Hobby, which we've got at the back here. Now, again, I'm not picking on any of these particular kits. They're just examples of their product, that's all. Great Wall Hobby, though. Now, here's a company that they're not as bad as Border, but they have this rather straight. I'm not going to open it. I'll leave it. Everybody will know what I'm talking about when I mention this, though. You open it. Any of their kits, you get the instructions out and they fall apart all over the desk, because they don't have, the instructions are like a series of leaflets that are not stapled together. They're not in a particularly sensible order sometimes. Sometimes they have amendments that are separate, and they make such a mess of it. And again, not very well laid out, not very well, not great clarity in the way that they are actually showing it. In fact, I'm going to open it because I think it's important that you see what I'm talking about. I'm just going to do it a quick way by cutting it, just for speed. There's actually quite a few of these, bear with me. And this is not different to any of the other Great Wall Hobby kits in this respect. They're all like it. This is actually a cracking kit. And this was also a gift, actually. But I want to show what I'm talking about. This is not as bad as the Border situation. Not as bad at all. But again, it's just, because it's not as bad, it's easily fixable by them. Let's give it in the box. They do it a bit like, it's a little bit like our friends at ICM in Ukraine. In that they have kind of a box within a box style. And I've got to pick that up. There we go. What is it? Yes. A masking set that's dropped out. I mean, they do some things beautifully. There's a Great Wall Hobby now. This is what I'm saying. I'm not going to slag them off. I'm just going to be factual with you, objective about it. Look at the way they do this. This is absolutely superb. They pack it so well. Everything's beautifully protected. Absolutely 10 out of 10 on the packaging front. Very, very clever. Also, look at this. Now, this is an interesting point. I need to show you this, actually. There's been a lot of talk recently about their latest product, but I'll come to in a minute. But look at the way they've done these. These are slide moulded weapons in one piece. They've got fantastic detail with the rocket pipes, etc. If I can just my fingers in there, I'll show you an example of it. Let's pull one out and then show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we've got a missile, Great Wall Hobby. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't that lovely? One piece. Very, very complex shapes, sophisticated moulding there. And they've managed to mould that in one piece, slide moulded, and it's got the hollowed out rocket pipe at the end. Isn't that nice? Absolutely fantastic, yeah? So they have got a lot of things going for them. I'm not knocking Great Wall Hobby. We're actually going up the list now in terms of getting better. Great Wall Hobby is one of the more improved ones. Having said that, are they though? So what they've done in their most recent product, oops, a little bit of trouble with mine tonight. I just want to get to the instructions, that's what we're all talking about here. Their most recent product is the new B version of the F14, which they're done at 48 scale. And in that, they've gone backwards. Instead of having these beautiful weapons, which they've been doing now for years, 4 or 5 years at least, they've now gone back to having non-slide moulded weapons, coming in about 25-30 pieces, with all the fins got to be stuck on and faffed around with, which is very, very strange. A real step backwards for them. But anyway, let's just get to the point. So let's talk about, here we go, see what I mean? It just all flops apart, and this is all Great Wall Hobby kits are like this. It's not this particular one. And then you're thinking, well, which is 112? Hang on a minute, that's got, and then that's got number 1. That's got 1. So is it what? What does it mean? Is that that says correction on? Okay, so that's a correction. What a mess! And this is on every Great Wall Hobby kit. I've had them in 72nd scale and exactly the same. Now they do give you some descriptions, so it's not all bad, but that they can do that better. That is a mess, frankly. And the joke in the industry, of course, is that before you assemble a Great Wall Hobby kit, you must first assemble the instructions. Now it ain't great, but you know, it's not kinetic. And it's certainly not a trumpeter. But it's just annoying. It's just a bit silly that they do it. You know, why are they doing that? It doesn't make any sense at all. Anyway, you know, you can see that there is potential here for them to be truly great. But this kit actually has got a great reputation, by the way. And they haven't all got a great reputation. This new Tomcat I've mentioned, I've heard many stories about that already. The B. People are having trouble, it's not going together very well, you know, it's got all these spoilers and things which everybody said was going to be wonderful. Now in the UK, via the UK distributor, Tiger Hobbies, you can actually get them at very good prices from your local model shop via Tiger Hobbies. They do it, I'm not going to quote the prices because it's a bit of a fluid situation, but they have got that product at very competitive pricing, more competitive than probably anywhere else in the world actually, certainly in Europe or the States. But not as good a product as that previous one, and I don't think they've quite got that right. So they're having a bit of a wobble, Great Wall Hobby. They've got great injection moulding, great plastic, some strange things going on with their design office though. And certainly the instructions, again, it's a weak point on them all. It's a weak point. Anyway, then we're on to Hobby Boss. Now Hobby Boss, again we're going up. Things are getting better as I go up this list. We've started with the worst and we're going to head towards the best. Hobby Boss are actually very good. I mean, they tend to be slightly, I was going to say Airfix-like or Revell-like in a way. They tend to have a slightly more simplified build than some of these other big Chinese manufacturers, and they do produce quite good value kits. I mean, you just have to have the Rafale here, but for example, you know, this is a good one where it's probably not quite as good as the Academy version, which is actually the Revell Reeboks, of course, but it's still a nice kit, this is. And they do make kits that go together well. They're fairly straightforward, they're not overly fussy, they're not overly complicated, they don't have too many parts. And I'm just trying to remember who was the oh, my memory's going to fail me. There's another manufacturer that produced the flanker, the C flanker. I will just mention this to you because this is something that is worthy in this collection of manufacturers. SU35B C flanker, was it? C flanker. From the one that flies off the Admiral Kutuzov, and I can't remember the name of the manufacturer of the kit, but it will come to me. It's not Great Wall Hobby. Is it Mini Hobby? Hobby Master. Just bear with me, because trust me, this is something that we need to talk about. A bit of a lack of preparation on my part here. SU35. Great Wall Hobby. No, it's not Great Wall Hobby. It's not Great Wall Hobby. It's not Kitty Hawk. No, it's not Hasagawa. It's none of those. It's Mini Hobby. Let's just take the 35 out. C flanker. Not Hobby Boss. I'm having a moment of senior mini base. There we go. Got it. Mini base. Another one of these Chinese manufacturers. Okay. So they produced a kit. It's the SU-27K, the C flanker, which flew off the Admiral Kutuzov carrier, basically. Now they produced a kit, and it's got something like 630 parts, and it's probably the most numeric kit of any. Well, it is the most numerical, high numbered part count of any kit of the flanker. And there is a move towards this sort of habit that some of these Far Eastern manufacturers have got into, as though they think that just having more parts is better and everybody's going to want the kit, and because they don't necessarily. Now, coming back to Hobby Boss, they're the opposite. They try and keep it very straightforward, fairly simple. Just going to look at it. It actually tells us the number of parts in here. Unfortunately, it's all in Chinese, so I can't tell you. But I know it's not got a high parts count. 2011, this particular kit. Oh, here we go. It's all about the actual fighter, made in China. But these guys do quite a nice package. They're not expensive kits. They go together well. Oh, there we go. Total parts 157. So 157, and something at the same scale, albeit a flanker, has got 630 parts. 4 times as many as this kit. 4 times as many parts. So Hobby Boss are trying to keep things simple and trying to do perhaps a more affordable kit that will sell well, and they are quite good. If you want the ultimate in detail, perhaps they're not the ones for you, but they're always, acceptable kits, and they're one of the better ones. So it's not all bad news. It's not all bad news at all. Now then, I have here. This is not Chinese, of course. This is from South Korea Academy, and Academy do a lot of work with Airfix in the UK. They actually supply quite a lot of Airfix's 35th scale armour kits. They're kind of reboxed by Airfix. Now Academy do tend to give us that they're sort of between your Hobby Boss and sort of heading towards the Tamiya, or trying to. But this kit came out at the start of this year. I think it was about £40, £43, something like that. Quite a detailed kit, and they've also had. I mentioned that they had recently had a review of the Rafale, which was a reboxing of the Ravel kit. But another good kit. They recognise that was probably the best Rafale on the market and reboxed it. These guys are a bit shrewder somehow. They tend to go for a sensible part count, but they do have some extra detail. So this has got a lot of weapons in it, which I had the Hobby Boss version, and that didn't have not so many weapons. The only thing that lets this particular one down is it hasn't got the cannon can't be displayed open, which is a little bit disappointing. Does it actually say how many parts there are? Pom pom pom. It doesn't seem to say. Yeah, they're not very good at telling us that sort of data, are they? I don't think. I think it's got about 250 parts, but it's quite a nice kit. I've been quite impressed by the quality of their moulding. So it's a bit like Hobby Boss, but maybe a bit sharper, a little bit more detail, a little bit more edge to it. So again, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. And then finally, we need to talk. And it's not an exhaustive list. There's lots of other manufacturers coming out of the Far East all the time. But of the ones I've experienced and the ones that I think most people are familiar with, I thought this was the the list to go through. Yeah, so you know, I'm giving a very short potted history and a very short sort of summarisation indeed, really. Snapshot, you might say. It's not a detail in the way that my ethics or Edouard or Ravel presentations were, or the Tamiya one will be, or even the Zoukei Mura and ICM. But some of these manufacturers are, to me, are a bit much of a muchness. They're all going for great tooling, and then they sort of fall to pieces after the tooling's over. Now, I mentioned Academy. I don't think that their instructions actually are the greatest either. Oh, let's have a look. Let's have a quick peek at it, shall we? So I think it needs to be looked at. Yeah, okay, yeah, indeed it does. I just remembered. They have a nasty habit of having manual and manual 1, manual 2. Now here is my point, the wider point about these Chinese manufacturers. They just don't make the effort on things like the history of the aircraft. There is no historical information about this aeroplane. If you had a youngster, perhaps your son, and you want to get him into modelling and he's interested in aircraft, you walk into the model shop and it doesn't even give you what a Matchbox kit would give you, or an Airfix kit would give you today, where they have a little bit of a story on the front and then you open it up or you read on the side and it gives you a little bit of a potted history of the plane, why it's significant or important. You don't get any of that. Academy don't do this like a lot of the others. Border don't do it either. Just these ones I've just mentioned don't do it. I don't think Hobby Boss do much of it either, frankly. So they're all guilty, these guys that I'm sort of naming and shaming today. They're all guilty of this very lazy approach where they don't do any research. They've just scanned an aircraft somewhere and then they go straight to production and they think that that's it, job done. No, it's not. It's not going to sell your product. I mean, when you've got kits as good as Great Wall Hobby and Academy, they really, in terms of the moulding, they really need to do this extra work. You know, we had Matchbox in the 1970s doing this better. It's ridiculous. Here we are, 50 years later, and it's just a joke. And they just think that the plastic will sell for them. Actually, when we come down to it and you start comparing, you look at the Tamiya offering and you look at the Zoukei Mura offering and all the data that they include, the history, the photographs, you're not getting anything here. You're not getting anything. You're just getting a kit. And you're struggling to understand how to put that together. Example. Okay, it's got some colour call-outs. Thank goodness. They have actually got that right. Although I've got to warn you, academies are a little bit hard to follow. Manual 1, Manual 2. It's like Great Wall Hobby all over again, isn't it? What's all this about? Why have we got this? Is it any wonder why we get frustrated with them? Really? Manual 1? Why? Just have one bloody manual, yeah? Manual 1, Manual 2? What the devil's going on here? Absolutely ridiculous. It's like something from the Stone Age. And then it folds out. This folds out like a Matchbox. It's like an old Matchbox instruction leaflet, which was fine in 1975, I've got to be honest. And then you follow it to a point and then it suddenly just seems to stop. Things don't get very well explained. They do have a little bit of English in here to help you, better than Border. And then it just stops dead and then you have to go into Manual 2, which is in colour for some reason. Nothing, and it's like this with the other kit, the recent one I reviewed, the Rafale. It's just not really explained properly. It's all very weird. Now, they do at least go on to tell you about where the aircraft was based, at least, and they have some colour photographs. So, yeah, this is why I'm a bit more tolerant towards Academy, but they could do so much better than they are currently doing. And this is the biggest bugbear with these Chinese manufacturers, and the Korean in this case. Come on, guys. Korea, I mean, that's pretty close to Japan, and they have a culture not so different to Japan. I'm not trying to generalise here. I'm not dissing anybody's culture here, but they have they have a similar approach to things, and I don't understand why they're doing this corner cutting. I think that's really disappointing. And it spoils Academy because they are potentially the best manufacturer out in that part of the world that's not in Japan, and they're ruining it because they just can't be bothered to do a bit more effort on the instructions and a bit of history and a bit more clarity. get your act together, get your instructions in one booklet, yeah, give us a bit of history, and it's done, yeah, because the plastic's great, but this is where they're going wrong. Now, finally, last but not least, one manufacturer that I had a big old falling out with. Oh, I need a drink, I really do. Cheers, I need a... This is turning into a rant. I think I'm going to call it a rant because it is, isn't it, really? I think a lot of you will identify with these. One manufacturer that really got my ire and irritation a couple of years ago was Meng. And I became very frustrated with them because they have another one that's got a good reputation for their plastic, but not strong in this area about instructions and colour call-outs and data. No, not good in this area at all. But it got worse because when they then acquired one of the Wingnut Wings moulds, didn't they? The Fokker DR1 triplane. And contrary to what other people have said, which is not correct, that kit had a major flaw. It had two major flaws in it. One was just to do with its packaging. The other was much more serious. The other was to do with the way they were extruding and removing the moulds, the actual sprues I should say, from the mould itself. You could tell. Wingnut Wings' original sprues were shown at Telford Scale Model World in 2019. I handled them and I took photographs of them and they were perfect. They were not warped or bent. There was no broken parts on them. They were absolute normal perfection from Wingnut Wings. Men get their hands on it and all of a sudden when the kits appeared, first of all it came out at the beginning, it was £70, which seemed a lot of money for what it was. So basically a Wingnut Wings price. But the quality inside was very poor. We had a very basic instruction leaflet, which was very basic. Nothing like Wingnut Wings. Okay, Wingnut Wings are gone. But they didn't make enough effort at all. They could have done a little bit more, and it was just almost Matchbox-like again. In fact, Matchbox were better, I think, in many ways, because they gave the colour call-outs for the small parts at least. But what was most serious about the kit was the fact that we had all these warp sprues, and in particular the sprue B, which was the central wing sprue and had the cockpit combing area. And most people found with that early production runs that this cockpit combing area is on a very fine, kind of a bad design, you might argue, but it obviously wasn't a bad design for Wingnut Wings because they were going to have it was going to be moulded in China, but they obviously had it under control. These guys, Meng, I am convinced, I've said it before, say it again and repeat myself here, but there is no way that was moulded at Meng's normal factory that they have had many other kits that we've all been impressed by. No. I think what happened is, it's pretty obvious. They got, at short notice, they got the opportunity to have this business and get their hands on the moulds by whatever means, we don't know. And I think they just had, it was outside of their planned schedule and they had to go to a third-party supplier. I am convinced of this because the quality was not the usual quality from Meng and it was absolutely dire. And it was all warped. We had this broken part because they were putting it upside down and the seat was pushing against it. That wasn't the serious part of it. The serious part was the warpage. And I've seen so many people build that kit and not realise that it's not supposed to have dihedral in its wings. They are supposed to be plumb level, yeah? All three wings plumb level. And it doesn't. It comes out looking like a Spitfire. And I'm sorry, but yeah, a lot of people completely misunderstood what the problem was. Perhaps weren't familiar with the actual aircraft. And didn't notice. Some modelers who really should have known better didn't notice either. Anyway, the point is, I was furious with them and I had this multiple rants on YouTube and they kept sending me replacements because I kept saying no, and they didn't check them clearly. What was probably happening is that they had got the temperatures wrong or the dwell time was wrong so there's two possibilities, and or somebody was pulling it out too soon and warping it in the way it was being removed from the mould, I think. For speed, perhaps. So one of those three things is almost certainly the case, I think. Maybe all of them, maybe a multiple factor. Anyway, the fact is that they sent me 7 more replacements over 2 or 3 month period, all of which I ended up putting on YouTube, and you could see how warped they were. Some were worse than others, and you could work around it and all this, but it was £70, you know, it was too much money. And in the end, I became very frustrated with them because they just started to ignore me. And that is not the way you treat your customers, especially when it's a customer that's on YouTube showing everybody else. It did them no favours whatsoever with the sale of that product. I had no shame or reservations about showing it because they just were not behaving in a very professional way, and I became very frustrated with Meng indeed, and I just dismissed them. Never to be bought again, never to be reviewed again, ever. Until this came along when my good friend David insisted that I review it, and changed my mind. Because all those things I've just complained about, bad quality, warpage, crap instructions, none of that applies in this kit. So these guys have pulled their finger out. Now, I think I know what's happened. It's just the original normal quality Meng design team. Not a third party this time. And I was very mighty impressed by this kit. I only reviewed it, what, 2 weeks ago? 10 days ago, I think. Was it a week ago? It's only a week ago. Okay, as I actually record this now, but it might be a couple, 3 weeks when you watch this program. But I was incredibly impressed by this. So impressed. I think it's one of the best kits I've reviewed this year. And it only came out in January, late Jan, early Feb in the UK anyway. Everything that I've moaned about with Meng, you know, bad instructions, lack of clarity, poor plastic, you know, broken parts and warpage. It suffers none of that, none of it. Absolute perfection in that box. Really good, up there with Tamiya or Zoukei Mura. In fact, many people saw my review and said they thought it was better than the Zoukei Mura even. I mean, I don't think the instructions are better than the Zoukei Mura, but as an overall package for the money, because you can get this for £50, £55 or thereabouts, a bargain. You know, a really, really fantastic kit for the money. A big step forward. A quantum leap forward for that company, I think. A real big leap forward. So you can see I'm not being negative against anybody for the sake of it. Anybody can find redemption if they just do the right things. Meng have done the right things. They've turned it around. They produced an instruction book that's very clear, with colour, clarity, information, simplicity, almost Airfix-like simplicity, but better descriptions than Airfix. So they really have made a massive step forward, and that kit represents an improvement, a big improvement, a change in direction, the right direction, towards Tamiya. So when I have my rant about, you know, the crap of KINETIC, although they've improved, you know, and again, if somebody presents me, I know someone, in fact I think it's David, he's got one of these KINETIC Pukaras. If he wants to send that along to me in the fullness of time, I will review it with an open mind, but I will not hold back if there are things in there I think are stupid. But they weren't, you know, with this Meng product, no. Very reassuring. It's actually, and I said this when I did the review last week, so it gives you a warm feeling to see somebody make a huge improvement like that, and actually, you know, so I'm not constantly, me personally, I'm not constantly just ranting and putting a rant in the title and all that. I don't want to be doing that. I want to see them improve. And some of these improvements that I'm screaming out for with a lot of these manufacturers are simple improvements. Edward, sort your decals out. That's all you got to do, yeah? For goodness sake. Great Wall Hobby, KINETIC, sort your instructions out. Come on, it's not that. And Hobby Boss and Academy. And Border, I mean, come on. Get the name right would be a good start for them. It's not that difficult. It isn't. It's simple. It's just, it's almost ridiculous, isn't it, really, that I've got to sit here ranting and raving. I need another drink. Calm myself. But you can see from the way that we you know, what we saw with that Meng kit, that it can be done. It can be done quite easily. The most expensive and difficult thing for them as manufacturers probably is to get the tooling right. Translating some instructions and putting some English is not a big deal. They just don't want to do it. Yeah, they just don't want to. And it frustrates me. It does frustrate me. So I hope that by having a bit of a rant about these Far Eastern manufacturers, you can see that I've been fair, and where credit is due, I'll give credit, even though they've infuriated me in the past. But they have improved, and that's great. And why? Now the others need to do the same. The KINETICs, you know, and the trumpeters. Don't even mention their name to me. Kitty Hawk, well, they've gone, haven't they? So, but it's just frustrating that, you know, we have manufacturers where you pay good money and you don't really get value. If I pay £70, £75 or £100, I'm expecting something excellent. Unless it's, you know, a massive scale or something. But we're talking about kits that compete with each other in the market. You know, you can argue whether that's better than Zoukei Mura, but they're in a similar price bracket. At RRP anyway, they're in a similar price bracket. Tamiya are more expensive, but there's a reason for that, you know. There's a reason for it. But some of these guys like Border and Great Wall Hobby, they're charging quite high prices for some of these kits, and they're not delivering on the price. They're not, and they've got to change. I won't support them until somebody. I mean, if somebody lends me a kit, or the manufacturer wants to send me a kit, that's absolutely fine. But I'm not going to spend my own money on any of these guys that I know are not performing well at the moment. So it's nice to see that it can be done. It can be done. So that's my 2 cents, or 4 penneth, as we say in the UK. I think that those things needed saying. Nothing unfair or unreasonable in what I've said. I think that sometimes, you know, I get these kits and you think, oh, why have I really just spent £75? Ridiculous, you know. It's as though they think that, you know, they can do half the job. It's like taking your car for a wash and they only clean the front half of it. No, I want the whole car cleaning, you know. It's give me value for money, and that means delivering on the whole package, not just the bit that's convenient for you to do. And there is too much of this going on where manufacturers turn up at a museum, scan an aircraft or whatever, tank, and they think that's all there is to it. They just put it in the computer sausage machine, spews out a program which cuts a tool, and that's it. Well, that's not it. There's more to it than that. There's more to it than that. If you want to have a wide appeal that's long term and sell your product and be able to charge those prices, you need to make it have appeal, and you need to do the work. You need to say what the product is. You know, I mean, even with this, Meng put a proper write-up about the Wild Weasel. They did it very well. No problem with it at all. And yet these others can't, and they're all from the same part of the world. So they're leading the way now. So I think Meng this year is my most improved, in my opinion, my most improved company. So I'll probably give them an award for the most improved manufacturer. Not the best manufacturer of the year, that's probably ICM in truth, but these guys have done a brilliant U-turn in the right direction. They're back on the motorway to success. So well done to them. The rest of you, pathetic. Pull your socks up, for goodness sake. Get somebody who speaks English to translate it, add some data, some historical data about your subject matter of the model, and pull your fingers out. Make sure you've got your instructions in one piece, not leaflets that fall about all over the floor. I mean, it's laughable. It's like some child has designed this stuff, you know. It's almost like the managing director gave it to his granddaughter to design it or something. Come on. You can do better. You can do better. I'm talking to you, Border, yeah? Great Wall Hobby, Border, Academy. Hobby Boss not so much, but they can improve too. But come on. It's just not cut enough, is it really? Anyway, that's my say. I've had my rant, for my final rant of the year probably. I think so anyway. So there we go. I thought you'd enjoy this one. I'm sure lots of you have got stories and examples you can give as well, where you've been dissatisfied with the content and what you've paid for the kit. Please share them with us. We'd be very interested to either in the chat or in the comments. Please share your experiences and which ones have disappointed you the most and why. And on that note, I shall leave it, and let's hope that next year things might improve with some of these manufacturers. Anyway, there we go. Don't forget to get, so I give them I won't give them anything out of 10 because there's too many of them. Meng gets 9 out of 10, and then down to KINETIC about 4, I think we said. Anyway, hope you give me 10 out of 10 with a thumbs up. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you found it amusing and interesting. Until the next video comes out, take care of yourselves, stay well, stay safe and stay warm. Until next time, thanks a lot and bye for now.